back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Nah, what?
Oh, yeah?
Well, I thought you were going to say something rude about me then. Which I would take this morning. I would take it as long as it's done in a hilarious way, as Dame Edna would have done. I mean, there's great pictures this morning. Have a look at this on the Star this morning. It's not the best picture, I don't think, of Dame Edna Everage. But nevertheless, dominating the front of the Star. Have we got it?
If not, we can pull it up.
Tuned out. The director had tuned out by my banter. There you go. It's nice that, you know, she is absolutely, you know, front and centre, as she always liked to be, of course. Good Night Possums is the headline there. And so many people, and it says celebrities of mourning Barry Humphries, which of course they are, because he had a lot of celebrity friends, he knew everybody. But nevertheless, I think it's us, it's the punters who are remembering him, really, after he died yesterday at the age of 80. And that's my favourite picture.
You like that, don't you?
I like that, because that's just her.
Dame Edna as she was, yeah.
Yeah, love it.
This is The Observer. It's also got a story about the Raab scandal, asking if Tories should politicise the civil service. They're asking if that's the right move.
Yeah, probably not.
I think you wade into a lot more problems, don't you?
I think you probably do. Meanwhile, do you fancy a holiday to get away from all this scandal and whatever's going on, whether you agree with it all or not? Perhaps do what Boris Johnson's done. Borrow a friend's villa. This friend apparently charges £4,000 a night. I don't know if Boris is paying that, whether he's staying there free, gratis and for nothing. You'd never know. But anyway, he's out in the Caribbean. 10th holiday, apparently, fourth holiday in 10 months.
10 months.
Not the 10th holiday in 4 months. That would be
extreme.
That would be a bit over the top.
But he's got friends in high places, friends with nice properties. It's not bad if you can get it. This is the Mail. Warnings about extremists and their plot to spook the king's horses during the coronation with rape alarms.
I mean,
it's obviously quite a distressing headline. Hopefully it's not going to happen.
No, let's hope
It's just based on sources, isn't it, at this point, and speculation, so hopefully not actually something that's going to take place.
No, let's hope not. If you are thinking of going away on a holiday, just remember, there's no place like home. Emma Burnell is here to take us through the papers along with Tom Slater. I should say, for those listening, you do look like Dorothy.
I am wearing a blue gingham dress. I nearly wore the hair in bunches. You can't see, but I'm obviously wearing ruby slippers under the desk.
Yes, sparkly ones.
Why not? Tom, let's have a look at the former Deputy Prime Minister in the Sunday Times.
Yes, so this is reporting that the Prime Minister's aides wanted to save Raab's skin because of the fact that they were concerned about the precedent that it would set, because of understanding amongst them that a lot of these allegations were not nearly as significant as they were being talked up to be.
No, they weren't.
And I think a lot of people looking at that report when it came out were kind of wondering, is this it? I mean, I think reading that report, you might say this is not someone I'd like to work for necessarily. Sounds like a bit of a git. That's not the same as bullying.
No, say what you mean, Tom.
I think that's an important point here, because, you know, bullying, when people hear the word bullying, I think the dictionary definition is someone who seeks to harm or intimidate someone.
Yeah.
You know, you can imagine him effing and jeffing in the office, or, you know, just actually trying to menace members of staff and so on. The two examples that have been circulating is he called someone's work woeful and useless. What if it was woeful and useless? And this kind of situation in which there's been, again, talk in the Observer and so on about the Tory party politicising the civil service. But if you've got a civil service which is willing to try and bring down ministers who, for all their flaws, are democratically elected and chosen by elected governments, then you're going to set up that political clash anyway.
Do you think they are trying to bring down ministers? Do you think they are blocking policies?
Well, there's noted evidence of this. There's certainly a lot of anecdotes that you hear members of Parliament talk about. I remember hearing at an event a while back, Kemi Badenoch talking about when she was trying to introduce single-sex facilities in government buildings, so making sure there's male and female toilets and so on. And that when she tried to push this policy through, she faced a lot of pushback from civil servants who would put notes on it saying, we're not sure if we can do this doesn't seem acceptable, the language, this is going to offend people, so on. There is a problem here. I'm not trying to say that I have a clear-eyed understanding of what everyone in the civil service thinks. I'm sure a lot of them do work very hard and try to leave their own politics at the door. But this is a problem that we've seen, particularly when it comes to quite contentious social issues, whereby there is a lot of resistance from the blob, as it were.
But did we reach a point, on the basis that you seem to think it probably shouldn't have gone, But there's no way he could have stayed from a government perspective, is there? In the fact that if they had said, well, actually, we don't think this constitutes a great deal, we're going to keep him on, then actually that's just ammunition for Labour, isn't it?
I think that's right. I mean, I think Sunak really set himself up for it when he made ethics in public life, in quotation marks, his kind of standard, because people are going to hold him to that. Now, in this instance, do I think keeping Raab on would be a great ethical, moral failure? I don't. But the problem is when you have a report which, at least according to its own, I would think quite strange definition of what bullying is, has found him to have.
But wasn't the definition? I mean, the lawyer says in the report the definition used is one that was used in a high court case about bullying, so it's quite a high standard
for a reasonable.
So there were 12 accusations, 10 of which were not reached, and 2 were. The problem that Dominic Raab had, he could have said, "Hey, I got 10 out of 2," but he'd previously said on the television, if I am found to have been caught bullying in this report at all, I will resign. There was nowhere else he could go.
But you've looked at the details. Do you think that was bullying? Hand on heart. Come on.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there are 2 issues here. First of all, there is this idea that the only way to get good work out of people is to be like just as mean as possible to them.
That's a bad boss.
That's incredibly bad boss. But I do think that there were unnecessarily punitive measures threatened. That, for me, is where it crossed the line. When you don't just say, you have done this work badly, go away and do it again. We've all had that. I've had to do that with other people. But there's a difference between you have done this, and I am threatening you with these measures that are not part of this process at the moment, that I'm just going to randomly introduce. That is bullying. That's threatening. That's unacceptable in the workplace.
But that was to do with the ambassador, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who it was. If you're introducing, this is what
an ambassador who suggested there should be Spanish boots on the ground in Gibraltar. I mean,
again,
it's senseless.
The ambassador probably made a mistake, but the question is not did the ambassador make a mistake and did Dominic Raab have a right, but did he have a right to do it in the way he did? And then this report has found that he did not.
But I think we need to remember that these people have incredibly important jobs. You know, these people are not being exploited on the minimum wage and so on. They should be held to a high standard. I wasn't inside the Justice Department or the Foreign Office. I don't really know what was going on necessarily beyond what people have reported. But I think it paints a slightly strange image of the civil service and the people who are again supposed to be there to implement the policy of the government. They're not there to do their own thing. Where they seem to be so hurt by rough criticism. I mean, it does feel like weaponised.
I honestly, as somebody who thinks a lot about how organisations work, a lot of my consultancy is helping people to do strategy, and sometimes that's internal. The literal worst way to get things out of people long time is to make them feel undermined.
But that's a management style.
That is
question.
a management style, but that's what he's being looked at is his management style bullying, and it has been found to be in 2 cases.
I mean, it was upheld, wasn't it? Emma, let's have a look at the Times, shall we? A really distressing story about an MI6 spy. Tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, this is a terrible story where this young man who had been working at MI5, and whilst working at MI5, his domestic life had got so bad that his wife had fled to a domestic violence shelter. So this is before he moved to MI6. This had already happened. He was then vetted to become he was implanted into a Taliban-controlled village. Before that, during the vetting, he was found to have the highest level of emotional distress it is possible to find. He was described as having traits closer to a psychopath than an ordinary person, and yet he put them into this incredibly awful situation where he was seeing the Taliban behaving in such a way. So he watched a whole family being beheaded. He was asked to hold the head of a decapitated child. And this has pushed this person who was clearly rife for being pushed over the line, far, far over the line. He killed his own child and has been found guilty of murder and put into a psychiatric hospital, presumably for life. And this just seems to be a failing at every step of this process. They failed him,
actually.
They failed us, and they failed the government.
Well, his lawyers are saying now that he was used by MI6. He was used in order to infiltrate that Taliban camp, but you never should have been there in the first place.
No, absolutely not. And you do. he is a clearly troubled individual and was a clearly troubled individual before he went there.
Should never be put in that
But he
type
should
of stressful
exactly,
situation.
absolutely. And it just feels like such an appalling abuse of that role of power and that gatekeeping role.
Yeah. Tom, we've just got a couple of minutes to look at the Sunday Telegraph. And these I hate scammers. Hate scammers. I think it's disgusting. One which has really sort of got through to a lot of people is this Hi Mum WhatsApp. It's spreading to text messages now.
It is, and I'm sure many people will have seen these messages themselves or known someone who's seen them where you, essentially out of the blue.
My mum's got one, yeah.
Getting a text message saying, "Hi Mum, I'm out and about. I'm on someone else's phone. It's broken. I can't talk right now. Can you send me some money?" And in the past year, 1.5 million has been extracted. I mean, that's only the amount that they can actually trace, obviously. So this was originally very popular on WhatsApp. You imagine them kind of just firing these out en masse in the hopes that someone will sort of respond to them. And again, it's horrible because, like so many of these scams, it's playing on people's good nature. They'll think, oh God, they're in trouble. They might, before they've got a chance to actually properly reflect on it, to think, is this genuine? Worded in such a way that it sounds like the sort of message you might get if your teenager was, stuck out somewhere and needed help. And it's also, I think, probably in part at least a legacy of that period during lockdown where it seems like all of those kind of texts and internet scams seem to really ramp up. There's probably a whole kind of infrastructure which exists now, which people can use to, again, exploit people in the most horrible way.
Yeah. Well, look, if you get a message like that, call the number and speak to your child if they're actually there, which they're probably not. It's wicked. It's wicked.
It really is.
Emma, Tom, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. Happy St George's Day to you both.
Yes, happy St George's.
Happy Shakespeare's birthday as well.
Yeah.
Oh yes, indeed, it is. And his death day as well.
Yes,
isn't
I
it?
believe so, yeah.